So how and why did the Cold War spread to Asia? In 1927, a civil war in China broke out between the nationalists, led by Chiang Kai-shek, and the communists, led by Mao Zedong. The war continued until the Japanese invasion of China in 1937, when it came to a pause. At the end of the Second World War, when the Japanese were defeated, the civil war started up again. And it took a further 4 years, 1949, for Mao Zedong to finally win that civil war, and Chiang Kai-shek fled to Taiwan. In 1949, China became a communist country. America had put their faith in Chiang Kai-shek. It was an opportunity here for America to perhaps reach out to Mao, but Truman, who hated communism, did not. The history of the world may have been rather different had there been some accommodation between the Americans and the Chinese at this point, but there wasn't. Mao naturally turned to the Soviet Union and to Stalin as a communist ally in the north, and they signed a treaty of friendship, creating a communist bloc that now stretched from Germany, East Germany in the west, all the way to China in the east, a huge communist bloc. There was no doubt this was an alliance. There were trade agreements. The Soviet Union provided economic assistance to China, but it was an uneasy one. Stalin was mistrustful of Mao and feared a communist rival. So it was an alliance, but not an easy one. And importantly, Stalin refused to share the secret of the atomic bomb with Mao. Truman and the Americans were very alarmed at the emergence of this communist bloc. The balance of power appeared to be swinging back in favour of the communists, who now dominated large parts of Eastern Europe, and now Asia looked to be the next area of growing communist influence. And so Truman decided that he had to move beyond the policy of containment, which had been successful in Europe, and had to take a more aggressive stance against communism in Asia. They feared the domino effect. The Americans feared that China had fallen and North Korea was already communist. They feared further countries in Asia falling to communism, not least, of course, Japan. And so they decided on a much more aggressive stance against communism in Asia. First in Korea and then in Vietnam, America would now commit troops, American soldiers, to fighting the spread of communism. This was a big change in American policy. Russia, or the Soviet Union, and China, on the other hand, committed support to communist regimes and communist fighters trying to spread communism in Asia. And again, they would support the communist forces in North Korea and, of course, in Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam later on. These conflicts would intensify the Cold War and see conflicts, genuine wars now breaking out. They would ultimately cost millions of lives, civilians and soldiers, including many thousands of American lives. The Cold War had entered a new phase in the 1950s and 60s.